Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to simply be rambling about my first year experience here in Japan. So I will be bouncing around quite a bit, given that I have some different stories, different things I want to talk about. So with that in mind, please check out the description for the timestamps of places you might want to skip ahead to if it's too much rambling for you. So without further ado, let's jump into the main portion of this video, and do keep in mind there will be a lot of random stories going forward. So March 15th last year was the first time that I arrived here in Japan at Narita Airport, and I actually slept overnight at the airport for my very first night here in Japan, which was a weird experience that I don't exactly recommend if you can avoid it, but I did save a good chunk of money by doing so. Thus, my first experience in Japan was not getting a lot of sleep and being dead tired watching robocops roam around the airport checking for unattended luggage. They have these like Roomba drones, basically, very tall boys, that will go around and check for luggage that's not being attended to and report it, as well as probably some other suspicious activity or something like that. I actually felt like I needed to turn my body every now and then and like shift my luggage because I didn't want the robocops to essentially think that I was part of the unattended luggage or so forth. So anyways, I really enjoyed my first month here in Japan, and it was just full of so many different experiences. I met a lot of interesting people, given that I was starting a job where you got to meet a lot of international people from different countries. But also, there was like a good buffer before my assignment started at my school. So after our training in Osaka, I think we had, 2 weeks before my assignment started. During that time, I got to travel a lot. Obviously I explored all of Osaka a good bit, and then I went to Kyoto first. And given that it was basically just starting the cherry blossom season, you got to see the beginning buds of those cherry blossoms. And I also went to Yoshino in Nara, which is also close by, and that is such a beautiful area. Highly recommend you go there if you want to see hanami or you want to do cherry blossom viewing, as the whole mountainside is just full of those beautiful cherry blossom trees, more than probably any other part in Japan. So highly recommend. I also have a video on that if you want to check that out. During my time in Osaka, I also learned how delicious and amazing Japanese curry is. I kid you not, I went to the same Japanese curry place 4 times in 1 week because it was just so good, and I couldn't cook during that time, so I had to go somewhere. And Japanese curry is very different from other curry I've experienced, so while you're in Japan, you definitely need to try it. Go to a local curry place, it's so good. And now I just cook it every week. I've probably eaten more Japanese curry than I've definitely eaten more Japanese curry than I have had sushi and ramen, for example. Now, there were some other random things that I had to do while I was waiting for my assignment to start, mostly when I was in Wakayama. And so my Japanese ability was definitely put to the test during that time. At first, it was very difficult to navigate certain things, as I was getting used to having conversations for the first time, essentially, with people in Japanese. And I had only done self-study at home for about maybe 2 years, if you calculate the on-off times. So while I had good comprehension of Japanese, and I could read a lot of kanji, going to the city hall, on the other hand, to do paperwork was definitely the worst experience in that sense. But thankfully, a translator was there who helped guide me through it. So I was saved from that early on kind of trauma, I guess you could say. And after that, things went quite smoothly as I slowly improved my listening skills, my motor ability to actually speak Japanese and do everyday life scenarios. And I even recently got my Japanese license, my driver's license, after going through about 2 different days at the kind of driver's license office, which is kind of attached to a police precinct, I guess you could say, and taking also a couple phone calls, which still to this day I'm dread ever seeing a phone number on my phone, because I'm like, oh gosh, I have to talked in Japanese on the phone. It's a terrifying experience because some people talk very fast on the phone and it's harder to clarify those sorts of things. It was quite stressful, but that gave me a boost in confidence being able to do those sorts of things. In any case, I am very much a firm believer in trial by fire, in which case you are put through different scenarios that very, very much test you on your ability to understand, and not just with Japanese, but just everyday life. But specifically talking about Japanese now, being put in those situations where you have to think on the fly and use the best knowledge of your Japanese ability to comprehend what's going on and get through the situation. From those difficult and often uncomfortable situations, you definitely learn a lot about what you can improve. You improve during those moments, and your ability to remain calm and think through it definitely gets better every time you go through one of those scenarios. So if you're not a weak human being, you become better because of learning from those situations, right? And it's truly amazing what you pick up in terms of being immersed in the culture and forced to adapt to the language. I will say that as an English teacher, you don't exactly get prompted enough to actually speak Japanese, which is an unfortunate aspect of the job. You do get scenarios, of course, because you can talk with Japanese teachers, but in terms of students, you're obviously expected to speak English, right? So there's not as much of that practice in speaking Japanese at your everyday going-ons and so forth. But I can't complain because my current position is really nice and overall pretty relaxed, so I have time to kind of practice learning, study, and so forth. And also I wanted to do this channel during my off time to essentially improve in areas I wanted to, and work on kind of this like side project that I really enjoy doing these kind of things. So I think this is a good segue now into talking about life as a teacher here in Japan, and also to talk about the future of this channel later on. So overall, I think that my time as an English teacher has been quite enjoyable, actually, more so than I thought I would have enjoyed it. A lot of people will come to Japan with the mindset of, as long as I'm in Japan, I will find what I can enjoy about it, even if I have to teach English, which I think is kind of a bad mindset. If you don't have any care in the world for teaching, then you shouldn't have that mentality, right? But before this position, I had taught anatomy and physiology at a university, of all things, right? And I'd done that for 2 years as a teaching assistant. And then I also did some environmental education here and there, actually quite intensively for one of my jobs. But that's about it. I had never taught English, and I wasn't really passionate about English. But I did really enjoy teaching, which kind of surprised me early on. So I was all ready to teach high school, which normally would sound like a nightmare if you compare it with American schools and the American education system. But I do think that there's a lot that America and the United States as a whole could learn from Japanese schools. Not everything, mind you, but some things are quite nice in how they structure the school system. And also, I think that a big part is just the cultural difference. Japanese high schools, I'm quite lucky to teach at one because the kids are all just very friendly and very fun to talk to. And I also have the opportunity as we call ourselves assistant language teachers. The Japanese teachers call us foreign language teachers, basically the same thing. The way we work in the school system is obviously different from Japanese teachers that teach the various subjects. And so our position is quite different, and we're sharing our culture as well as the language. So we're cultural ambassadors, right? And through that experience, you get to do a lot of cool stuff. I get to join clubs and the activities and talk with the kids after classes are over and those kind of things. So I really get to engage with the cultural aspects of the school overall, which is very unique to the position that I'm in that other people won't get with other jobs in Japan, if you're not teaching, right? So I really enjoy that aspect of this job, and while I don't see myself teaching, forever, I do enjoy this opportunity to explore teaching and learning about Japanese schools and Japanese culture from this job. With that being said, if you clicked on this video because of your own curiosity for living in Japan or teaching in Japan, then feel free to ask me questions in the comments down below. I'd be more than happy to answer some of your questions. Maybe not all of them. I won't be able to answer every question you have, perhaps, but I will do my best to give you an answer that I find satisfactory. So feel free to ask me anything down in the comments below. Doing all these Japanese videos and giving my pointers, I still have personally a lot to learn about Japanese, but the point of this channel is mainly to focus on kind of providing cultural insight, fostering a community of learning, and also having fun with Japanese culture along the way. So that's always been my desire with where I saw this channel. And what's really crazy is that we just hit 1,000 subscribers. So thank you so much to all of you who view my channel from all over the world. In fact, most of this channel is built on people that are in different parts of the world. Only a tiny percent are even my own friends. So that's pretty crazy. And thank you so much for watching and supporting this channel. So anyway, I've seen the analytics of what people have watched and what people have enjoyed or commented on, have learned from. And so that's shaped now my impression of what I should do in the future to continue to make this channel grow and so forth, because I do enjoy making these videos. So I want to continue doing educational videos, of course, but also continue doing those kind of special, maybe some occasional travel videos and some other fun videos. For example, what you might not know is that among foreigners in Japan, there are a lot of people who play D&D, and during my time in Japan, that's been one of my main social aspects, in fact, and how I've met some of my really close friends now is that D&D is so big. There's so many Discord groups and so forth. And so those kind of small things about Japanese culture and people living in Japan that you might not get elsewhere. So that's where I kind of see the future of this channel, is continuing to touch on those educational videos to make content that's engaging and interesting, and also to talk about and share kind of some personal experience that I have, and just continue to enjoy and see what is working and not working. This is all still very new to me, so thank you for joining all on this crazy ride. In essence, this channel will have more tips videos, video game lesson videos, the occasional travel video, even though those don't really gain many views, and other random videos as I see fit. Like if I see a Japanese movie that I find interesting and want to talk about, I'll talk about it. If something interesting happens in Japan, I'll talk about it. Those sorts of things. Because when the videos that gain a lot of traction don't require a lot of effort compared to the videos like travel videos, which don't gain like any traction, I'm more prompted to go with those videos that are very easy to make, but also people enjoy and watch. So that's probably where the direction that I'll be heading for in the future. So just keep that in mind. Finally, going forward with life here in Japan, I do have some very fun plans, especially for spring vacation this year, and I'm going to be camping in the Kumano Kodo route in the mountains of Wakayama. It's a very beautiful area. There's lots of different routes actually, but I plan to spend 4 days camping. I got my own backpack in the back there. I could grab it. It's pretty heavy right now. I need to lighten it. But I plan to go backpack camping for 4 days on that trail. It's going to be a fun time out in nature. Hopefully the weather's good, and hopefully it doesn't rain a ton while I'm there. In any case, it's going to be a good time. I also still want to go up to Hokkaido at some point. Maybe this year I'll be able to do that during winter. I'd love to go during winter time. And then I also want to go down to Kyushu and see and hike up some of those volcanoes there, and maybe go and visit some hot springs as well. So there are still so many places that I want to go here in Japan. The first year it's kind of hard because your income is so low, right, as a teacher here. So trying to save up for certain things could be a little tricky. And that's actually something that's pretty good to talk about too, living in Japan with the position that I have on a budget. So life in Japan is actually not that expensive in my personal experience. And so even though the teaching positions here when you come to Japan they pay you very little, very little, and it can be quite hard to live on. But given that Japan is not really that expensive depending on how you live, you can get around it pretty easily. And if you budget wisely, then you can still go to a lot of different places in Japan. And if you think about ways to lessen your expenses while traveling too, that is also a great time to kind of make the most of your experience in Japan. For example, there is the Seishun 18 ticket, which you can buy during spring, during summer, and winter. And while it does extend your travel time because you can only take like certain trains, it's very cheap if you're going a very long distance. So you can spend a day of traveling, not the most ideal, but you can save a ton of money. So those sorts of things to keep in mind. If you need advice on budgeting and trying to live that frugal lifestyle, feel free to ask me questions. Anyway, now I'm just rambling, so let me end with my favorite food, trip, and experience here in Japan. So I think overall for food, my favorite experience, like overall food experience, not just like the food that I ate, but also just who I was around, where I was, that sort of thing. I remember, was it my second week here in Japan in Wakayama, I went out with some new friends and we went to what we thought was just a, izakaya where we could drink some drinks. Ended up being Nomi Hodai, which is an all-you-can-drink kind of 2-hour experience where you are presented with oftentimes food, really nice food, and whatever drinks you want to order for 2 hours. And so during this time I had, what did I eat? I ate raw chicken, which was a very unique experience, but it was safe to eat, trust me, and also horse meat, which I had never had before either. So that was quite an interesting experience given that it was just 3 of us and we ended up in this Nomi Hodai situation and we were eating raw chicken and horse. In terms of my favorite trip actually was during, again, my kind of first few weeks here in Japan. I went to Yoshino in Nara. And I've talked a little bit about this at the beginning, but Yoshino is just a beautiful place to go because you have the mountainside, like if you're going during fall, autumn leaves, but if you're going during spring, there's just like thousands of cherry blossom trees lining the mountainside. Beautiful weather. You can hike up the mountain. There's so many stalls and shops and stuff you can check out while walking towards your Hanami viewing spot. And it's just a great experience. So that was definitely my kind of favorite trip. It was easy. It was very enjoyable, and I got a lot of good pictures from it and some good exercise as well, which you will do a lot of walking in Japan. So that, I would say, is my favorite trip. And I would probably say that my favorite experience overall was listening to jazz music at a jazz bar in Tokyo, in Akasaka, Tokyo. And what can I say? I just really love jazz music, so probably no surprise that would be one of my more favorite experiences. So that's my year in beautiful Wakayama, Japan. There's so much I could talk about that would just end up being rambling and make this video way too long, such as the time that all of Wakayama was like flooded because of the massive amounts of rain that happened that cut off certain bridges. Yeah, there's all sorts of weird little once-in-a-lifetime things that have happened this year. In any case, I did cover the major points that I wanted to talk about, and if you are visiting Japan soon, give me a shout out if you're going to the Kansai area and want some travel tips or areas to visit, as I will be happy to share my experiences of where I've been and how I've enjoyed those places. So here's to another year in Japan. Cheers, y'all, and catch you in the next one.